A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, it is a period of peace mingled with an uncertain future. On the Great Plains, two young lovers seek to seal their bond, while the selfish and war-hungry seek possession over all others. For a woman and a warrior both, it will take acts of deep courage and enduring love, both for each other and for their community, to see it through and greet the new dawn. This episode was recorded across the unceded ancestral land of the Mascogo, the Mass-adchu-es-et, Miccosukee, Mohican, Munsee Lenape, Naumkeag, Pawtucket, Schaghticoke, Seminole, and Wappinger Nations. As we approach the National Day of Mourning for the First Nations, please visit Native-Land.ca to find out whose land you are on and how you can support those people who first called this land home. Hello there, and welcome back to 6 Degrees of Star Wars, the podcast where we explore all the ways George Lucas's flagship franchise surrounds us, binds us, and penetrates us in the landscape of cinema. I'm your host, Sam Marchiarni. Joining me today, Jasmine Garcia.
Red Wing, honey, he is not the love of your life. He is literally just a guy. Leave him to the coyotes.
And Ellie McConaughey.
The entire time I was watching this, I was remembering a line from one of the few things I'm obsessed with more than movies, which is The Exiles, Scully saying, I think what happened here is the oldest story in the book. 2 men, 1 woman, trouble.
And then there's a 4th woman who could do so much better.
Yeah.
Much better.
Honey.
Happy Native History Month, everybody. We went deep into Native history. This is the 1920 silent film, The Daughter of Dawn, which for a really long time was a lost film. It was, like we said, made in 1920. It wasn't found and restored properly until 2012. Thank you to the Oklahoma Historical Society for that. It is pretty fucking amazing.
I was curious how you got this into the system, and I kind of suspect it's oh god, what is the sound guy's name? Bert?
No, it is not Ben Burt, surprisingly.
Okay. Greetings, I am IER60, Star Wars Retelling Connections. Point of intersection found. This is a degree 6. Norbert A. Miles was in the 1948 adaptation of Hamlet with Peter Cushing, who was in A New Hope. Additional source material found. The Daughter of Dawn is in the public domain.
Oh!
That's so crazy.
Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee are they do so much to expand this movie. Your options.
They really do. They're at least 2 pillars of this podcast.
Yep, George Lucas's nostalgia boner saves us again.
Woo!
So, this movie is free to watch on YouTube, partially because it's in the public domain, but also because this is absolutely something that should be accessible. It's really freaking cool. It's a really old film, was released 104 years ago in October 1920, and it features an all-native cast, largely shot in native territory. The actors are from the Comanche and Kiowa nations, including children of the last chief of the Comanche Nation, Connor Parker, and a lot of this is preserving Plains natives' life. The battle scenes, the bison hunting, the traditional dances. I am kind of fixated on the bisons, because in the first 5 minutes we had a little bison going bleh.
I was gonna say mythical blep.
Protect the bison so that they can go blep.
I mean, I'm definitely always in favor of native history being preserved, and of course of any movie of a certain age being preserved, or any movie being preserved, good, bad, mediocre. Preserve all movies. But also, I'm always really interested in getting to see movies from, very, very early on in film history. Like you mentioned a moment ago, this is 1920. The Kuleshov effect had barely been codified. We were still, working out montage as a concept. It's a very, very early example of the form.
And it holds up really fucking well.
Mhm.
Yeah, you know, there's some, obviously it's not paced like a modern movie would be, but it really does overall hold up and I think part of it is just the story is very simply, it's a love square. That's really all there is to it, but it does it really well, actually.
I mean, it's funny because initially I thought, okay, there are two separate movie plots happening here, but then it got brought all together by one of the earliest film documentations of an incel.
Right? Oh, this
This
motherfucker.
man.
You know, we use incel as like it's a very modern word. I think it was invented in, what was it, like the 90s to describe something completely different.
Incel, as I have understood it, was in the 2010s, but I could be wrong. Jazz, should I power word age you?
Sure, go for it.
Do you remember when incel first started getting used? Was it earlier than the 2010s?
I did not hear it earlier than the 2010s, and I was chronically online from like the age of 12.
Okay, to be fair, I did go and Google it because I do
Fair
love
enough.
being right.
Yeah.
I agree with both of you that the modern usage of the term does originate in the 2010s, but the first website to use the term incel was Alana's Involuntary Celibacy Project in 1997.
Oh.
So much like virtue signaling, they just stole a word that someone else used to mean something specific and applied. Anyway, I completely got off track, which is that like another major piece of media that was created-ish around this time is the Fall of Gondolin. It was the first piece of writing that Tolkien ever wrote in the 19-teens. He wrote it. He was recovering from the Battle of the Somme, and it also has an incel.
I mean, listen, the concept of an incel has always existed. It's just we only recently named it.
Mm-hmm.
Listeners, you may be a little bit confused about what the fuck we're talking about, so let's give you the rundown.
Mhm.
Most of the main characters in this movie are from the Kiowa Nation. We are specifically following the chief's daughter, who is named the Daughter of Dawn because she was born when it was dawn.
Did that title card remind anyone? It was almost word for word exactly what they described in Sleeping Beauty of the reason why they named her Aurora.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit, yeah. But so the Daughter of Dawn has two guys interested in her. One is White Eagle, who is a chill, nice dude. Maybe a
Nice
little too
smile.
chill.
Very nice smile, and hey, this is good for our height difference, girlies.
Yes, it's very good. And the other one is the incel we have been alluding to, Black Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
And Black Wolf has a girl named Redwing who is pining after him for reasons I cannot understand.
He's just kind of a douche. Like, apparently he's, like, very renowned around the tribe because I guess he's, you know, their version of wealthy.
He has all the ponies.
He has all the ponies, which...
Usually in like so like the main thrust of the narrative is that she wants to marry the guy she actually likes, but not Black Wolf, even though Black Wolf is like wealthy and respected. And I did like that, you know, her father asked her, okay, who do you love? And he's like, yeah, you're not marrying his money, so I guess it makes sense you'd want to marry someone you love.
Yeah,
Good for you,
like,
Dad. Very good dad.
Rare good dad in these stories.
Kind of takes me back to when we were like talking about the rough-faced girl thing in your Cinderella episode, Jazz.
Yeah, a little bit. And also, kudos to the Daughter of Dawn. She fights back when Black Wolf gets handsy.
Yeah, I mean, I did write in my notes, just tell him when she comes to White Eagle after Black Wolf tried to assault her, and he's like, babe, what's wrong? And she's like, it's nothing, I'm fine. I'm like, tell him!
Okay, but also this is a wonderful "who did this to you" moment.
It is
example.
wonderful.
Yes. Again, I kind of ship it. I didn't expect to ship it.
I do enjoy ships where the ship is just people liking each other.
And having romantic canoe rides.
I want a romantic canoe ride.
Don't
I want
we
a
all?
romantic. It's just like, it's not fair. We don't do that anymore. I guess we could go out to the Long Island Sound, but who's going to do that?
You got me there.
I mean, I could go out to the Boston Harbor, but there's tea in there.
Really, this movie is so beautifully shot, too. Like,
Oh, yeah, it's lovely.
It's one of those things where, like, I'm watching it, And one of the things I advise people about silent films, I think I even said this during my Wings episode, is that if you're going to watch a silent movie, you really have to like reset your expectations quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like it is beautifully shot, and there's like part of it is just there's some clearly, I don't want to say missing pieces because like the plot is all there, but they're clearly like missing frames. It's a little like the exposure's kind of fucked. It's very yellow, but like it's gorgeous looking, and I wish I could have seen it when it was in good condition.
God, can you imagine? But also, it did kind of make me wonder, are all silent films, or at least of this era, kind of inherently vibes films?
Yeah.
A lot of it is vibes. Silent films are a lot more driven by gesture. Like, I'm repeating you again, Jazz, that's why Lon Chaney thrived in them. And on that note of Lon Chaney was really good at this because he was a child of deaf adults.
Yep.
It's really cool in this film to see what I'm pretty sure is, the technical term for it is Plains Indian Sign Language, also known as hand talk.
Yeah.
And it's used by a lot of nations, including the Kiowa, still, I believe.
It is. I went and looked it up because I mentioned it because the Comanche chief talks in it quite a lot while he's talking.
I think both the chiefs talk in it at different points. And I'm like, that's really fucking cool. That's a really cool thing to have preserved in film.
And it's just like, it's, you know, you're right that silent films kind of have to be vibes based. And I think that like they are at their best when they're not slapping title cards up every 10 seconds to try to make, like, you kind of just got to let it, like, but there's a reason why I think it's Buster Keaton was so good at what he did and why he could not really make the jump to sound, because he was so built, like he would use, like, I think it was like a third of the number of title cards as most movies. And so this one is very title card light. I feel like I never saw a title card pop up where I'm like, we didn't need that.
Yeah, no, and they also add some really nice art to some of those title cards.
Oh yeah, the film, when the film gets segmented, and even it's almost like lampshading. There was a title card that was something like the Eternal Triangle or something like that.
I had that in my notes too.
From time immemorial, the Eternal Triangle. They're like, come on, you know this story.
That's what I'm saying. One oldest story in the book. One woman, two men, trouble.
Yes. Tale as old as time.
God, I like this so much.
It's a nice movie. I am pleasantly surprised by how invested I was.
It's also, again, this is one of those things where like I don't want to be presumptuous, you know. Again, it was a lost movie for a long time. I don't know if 100% of it is intact. It's also a very short movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
it's like
really short.
I didn't like check the time code when I ended, but it comes in it comes in easily under 90 minutes.
Because again, vibes, a lot of it is just visual and mood and almost like a snapshot preserving this way of life for Plains natives. The celebration dance, they spend a lot of time just focusing on the dancers. Plot isn't necessarily happening. Plot is happening in the background around the Thanksgiving dance, but, you know, it's just cool to see everybody out in their regalia and forming this sense of community. I vibe with it.
Absolutely. It's beautiful, really. And, you know, it's actually kind of stunning that we got this as far back as the 1920s, and basically they are portrayed in a very respectful manner in a way that you're hard-pressed to see in movies today.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody I think has the right to complain about this, it would be the Comanche, because the Comanche are depicted as the bad guys, but the majority of the cast, or a large portion of the cast, is Comanche, so I don't think they would have agreed to do this if they weren't like, it's cool.
No, yeah, we did that. It's not great, but you know. And it also makes a really interesting parallel to a movie that came out a couple years later, which is Nanook of the North, which is a documentary. I'm using, I don't have my camera on. So
yeah.
Yes, I am doing finger quotes. I'm doing really big finger quotes.
Yeah, that movie is infamous.
That movie is infamous for being like mostly hoax, a lot of lies, a lot of cliches. And so like
lovely.
It's but it's just so interesting to me that like the fictional film, the film that doesn't purport to be a documentary, is actually a better representation of an older time period than like the movie that was pretending to be a documentary.
Yeah. I think another thing that does help is that the Comanche aren't like doing shit bad until Black Wolf shows up and is like, yeah, let's go like fully take all their women because the Kiowa are weak and they kicked me out because I wouldn't jump off a cliff to prove that I wanted to marry the chief's daughter.
Which, I mean, fair, but also get over it, motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
You did this to yourself.
Kinda, yeah.
I did think it was kind of like, I don't want to be rude to the traditions, but like I do think it's kind of like mean, like, hey, if you don't jump off this cliff when I tell you to, we're gonna kick you out for being a coward. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna midsummer myself over a chick.
Yeah, that's fair.
It was very fairy tale though, like
Yeah.
a test of a pure heart and stuff, because it's mentioned in his introductory title that Black Wolf only wants the daughter of Dawn because he wants to be the chief of the village.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's at his core a selfish person, so self-preservation is what he chooses.
And also it is kind of neat how White Eagle had like the cross-faded vision of his beloved in the midst of the challenge.
Yeah, that was nice.
It's just like, I'm doing this for you, love.
I will say the punishment being he gets kicked out. I've seen a handful of movies about like, or read stories or whatever about like native cultures, pre-Columbus, native cultures, and like one of my favorites that I saw when I was like, so I want to say I was like 10 or 11 is a movie about Native Alaskans called The Fast Runner, and at the end, the villain's punishment for being like for what they did isn't to be executed or beaten or anything. It's just leave. You have to leave now.
Yep, it's a loss of community, basically.
Of course, you know,
Which,
getting kicked out to live alone in northern Alaska is basically a death sentence.
yeah, I mean, I think after however long we were all locked up in our bedrooms at COVID, we know how lonely being alone can be.
Oof.
And then she goes with him. Then
Red Wing, yeah.
Red Wing goes
Baby
with
girl.
him.
It's like, why?
Hit him with
What is
your
the
car.
Why? Why do you love this man?
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't
Is
get
it because he has all the ponies?
I hope not. I feel like no. I feel like that wouldn't work because otherwise she wouldn't have followed him because he no longer has all the ponies once he is exiled.
Right, no, I'm racking my brain for what the hell could possibly have her this attached to him.
And it's like the other guy, even outside of like, what is his name? I'm looking at my notes.
White Eagle, the good guy?
Like
White
him, I get it. Like I don't, I'm not super into guys, but I am into guys. He's good looking. He's a good looking guy. Black
Very
Wolf.
nice smile.
I mean, maybe it's just the way he's performing it, but he's like, he doesn't seem to be,
He's like perpetually grumpy.
Well, I am too, but he doesn't look very good on him.
Oh yeah, no, I am a card-carrying member of Resting Bitch Face Club, and I see nothing wrong with that. Other people might disagree, but fuck it. This is just how my face looks, and I know I'm still cute.
You are very cute, yes.
Mwah.
But, and I mean, we really should probably note, no one on this podcast is affiliated with an indigenous nation. We should probably make that clear. But
Yeah.
Like, I'm Dominican, so I have like a tiny bit of Taino blood, but that barely counts. It's never been really a part of my culture or upbringing. That's all. That's mostly what I meant.
Right. But, like, there's also an argument to be made that gatekeeping also shouldn't be a thing. Like, cultural preservation is important, and it is important that these stories are told by the custodians of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is an instance where they got that. Like, if you told me Martin Scorsese watched this movie before he was working on Killers of the Flower Moon, I would believe you. I know that there are Native people who have a lot of beef with Killers of the Flower Moon, and that is their fucking right.
Yeah.
Absolutely will not gainsay it. But I know other Native people who are like, Killers of the Flower Moon is a very important film, and I am glad that it exists.
It's almost like people are allowed to have different opinions.
Well, that sort of thing. Like, I think that my impression of what the controversy about Killers of the Flower Moon was, and people can come disagree with me if they want. I thought the film was brilliant, personally.
Mm-hmm.
But like, first off, let's be 100% real with everyone. a native, anyone but like Martin Scorsese or someone of his caliber, of which there is no native director because they don't get those opportunities, goes
Exactly.
to Apple and says, "Hey, I want to spend $200 million making a movie about white people murdering Indians in the 1920s and getting away with it, and also it's a huge downer from top to bottom." They're not getting $200 million to make that. Martin Scorsese is, other people are, and I think that, like, I was looking at this, I was looking up the director, like, was it a white guy or was it a native? It was a white guy, but like, they weren't going to let a Native American direct a movie in 1920. Is that awful? Yeah, but like, I don't know. That's not the movie's fault. The movie's fault is not the movie's fault that the culture is the way it is. And I think that Killers of the Flower Moon, especially with its final scene where it basically acknowledges, like, this is a fantastical retelling of this story. We tried the best we can, but we can't be 100% accurate. And Martin Scorsese showing up to be like, I am complicit in this stuff too, is as close as you're going to get to a good way to do that kind of story.
Yeah, because this movie did also offer a thank you to somebody named R.E. Banks, who I tried to look up. The only R.E. Banks I found is Raymond E. Banks, a science fiction writer who was born 2 years before this movie was released. So it's not him. So I have no idea who R.E. Banks is, but apparently he's some kind of, I don't know, Dances with Wolves motherfucker who lived with the Plains Nations for 23 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as soon as I read that, I was like, oh no, is this a proto Dances with Wolves somehow?
And the answer is no, thank God.
Yes, no. This was quite the opposite.
I don't want to go too deep into my thoughts on Dances with Wolves, because it is extremely eligible for my podcast, and one day I'm going to have to talk about it. But I will say, that comment I just made, like, this is Killers of the Flower Moon is the best case scenario of a white person telling a Native American story. I feel like Dances with Wolves is our worst case scenario, without getting actively hateful.
It's up there.
It or Pocahontas, which I think is a movie of similar quality.
Yeah.
I don't like either of them.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's rough.
It's rough. They're rough movies.
And in that respect, that's another thing I like about this movie. This movie is not rough. It is not heavy. It's one of those instances of reminding that perseverance equals joy.
Yes. Which, God, do we need that right now?
I'm reminded, I was a big fan of Rutherford Falls, the sitcom on Peacock for 2 seasons, which was a Michael Schur and Sierra Ornelas creation. And that one was a really funny, really smart take on Native life in the modern era.
Oh, yeah, it is an all-Native cast. There's not even a breath of mention of anything colonial, really. It's just...
It could even take place pre-Age of Exploration.
Maybe.
It has sort of a timeless quality to it.
It's just a love story. It's a slice of life, and that's all it needs to be. And I love it for it.
Unfortunately, that means that I don't really have a lot of deep thoughts on it.
That too.
Yeah, I've started to notice a pattern. When we like a movie, we have less to say about it because we're like, yeah, it's good.
It's hard to describe when something is good, you know?
Well, it's not necessarily like I if a movie is good and I really love it, I can have a lot to say about it. I have a lot to say about The Matrix. I have a lot to say about I Saw the TV Glow. But like, there's a spot where a movie hits where it's good, but not like life-changingly good and not very complex. I don't think I'm insulting this film when I say it's not very complex. It says, hey, this love triangle story you've seen before, we're doing it again, okay? Okay. Like, it's admitting to it.
Honestly, when I read like the description of it on Wikipedia, I thought this was going to be a way more overt star-crossed lover thing where it was the daughter of the Kiowa and the son of the Comanche chiefs and they fall in love that way. And so I was pleasantly surprised that no, we're not going to try to Romeo and Juliet, West Side Story, this bullshit.
Hold on. West Plains Story.
Out.
Okay.
The sad thing is there is actually a silent film called like Indian Romeo and Juliet. Not a
Ah.
single
Yeah.
native actor in there, of course.
Oh no. Come on, man.
I know.
I mean, that is the ultimately, like, and I brought this up in another one of my episodes because the treatment of Native Americans in Hollywood is going to be, as someone whose podcast has extended from 29 from 2018 to 1929 at this point. We're going to be bringing it up a lot.
Yeah.
And like, it is very impressive that this hasn't, like, there's no brown face in this movie, given how as late as like the 70s, the crying native in those commercials is just an Italian guy in brown face.
Yep.
I'm fairly certain there are still instances of like Taylor Sheridan casting white women to play native women in fucking
geez.
Yellowstone or whatever. I don't fuck with Taylor Sheridan, so I don't know that for certain, but some of the native people that I follow on social media have it out for Taylor Sheridan the way you have it out for Aaron Sorkin, and all I can say is valid.
I don't know anything Taylor Sheridan has made. I have seen ads for Yellowstone, and as someone who is not a particularly big fan of Westerns or history movies of that type, every single trailer I've seen for it is like, wow, watching that sounds like torture. And so I just don't,
Yep. It's so simple to just not.
And you know what, you brought up the Taylor Sheridan is still doing? I can do it right now. Emma Stone plays a native Hawaiian in a fucking Bill Murray movie, I think it is.
Aloha. You're talking about Aloha.
Fucking Aloha.
I'm talking about Aloha. Thank you.
That was a fucking mess and a half.
Never seen it. Gonna keep that up.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, man.
Sandra Oh was 100% correct in calling her out on it.
Right, and is she playing? I thought she was playing a native Hawaiian. Is she playing an Asian in that movie? That's not better.
No,
That's not
it's
better.
both. It's both.
Oh my Christ! No, Emma, no. This is the second worst thing you've done to Native Americans after robbing Lily Gladstone.
You're right. You're right.
And it's if I want to be like, I do want to have more to say on this movie, but like the stuff that I have to say about film preservation, about how movies get lost and refound, like that shit's really interesting to me. And it's just such an unglamorous, difficult job to do. You end up digging around fucking salt mines in South America trying to find old episodes of Doctor Who or something.
Jesus.
It's a bummer. And I'm glad this movie got refound. I hate knowing how many movies made before 1950 are just gone forever.
Yeah. Apparently it's like one of a collection of films that... there's one called Hiawatha, and another one that... The title makes me nervous because it's called In the Land of the Headhunters.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
But both of these had all native casts.
Okay.
And the other two also kind of make me nervous because their names are The Vanishing Race and Before the White Man Came. And I'm like, those two kind of seem connected to each other for a very specific reason.
A little bit?
I mean, like, there was I don't want to say a trend because that's like overstating it. There was like a little mini I'll say movement, because that's what I like to call minor film trends, of like docudramas about Native Americans in between Birth of a Nation and like the rise of modern film editing. I think most people would point to like 25 and Battleship Potemkin is when we start seeing modern editing. And so at that point, your spectacle has to be from like shit your audience can't really see at home. And so they got really into like I mentioned A Nuke of the North. There's this one. There is In the Land of the Headhunters, which I have heard of before. It is a very much a suck air through teeth title.
Oh.
I think this is one of the better ones. I'm not going to criticize any natives for participating in it. Shit was, is, and will likely continue to be really hard out there. It only gets harder the farther away from the centers of power you get.
Yeah.
But they were not super. I'm given to understand many of them were not super pleasant to be in or around.
Yeah.
And I think that's really part of why we're so excited about this movie. It's like, it makes it look easy, you know?
I was prepared for this movie to be extremely unpleasant to sit through, as I think the only member of this particular recording who has actually sat through Birth of a Nation.
Oof.
Movies back then could get real rough.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also pretty indicative that the fact that a historical society went into so much trouble to preserve this film and digitize it once they found it speaks to how important it was. The original score for this movie was apparently never finished, so they went in, they made it a completely new one, and it got performed by students from Oklahoma City University. And I really liked the score. It had a little Sondheim-y quality to it.
Yeah, no, I really liked the score. I wouldn't have thought of Sondheim until you mentioned it, but I see it.
It's a good score. And especially for movies that are in the public domain, scores can be kind of hit or miss. In our Wings episode, the first stream of it, I found had 45 seconds of kind of classically music that just looped endlessly.
Yeah, that I think that happened with a lot of silent films.
Yeah,
right.
to the point that it kind of fucking just kills the movie. But this is not one of those instances.
No, it is a very good score, and I don't know, maybe it's partially because it was kind of replaced in the modern day. I don't want to say that scores from the time period couldn't have been good, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I
get
like
wanting
our
to
accessibilities of it, I guess.
I get wanting to try and make the best possible thing, because this is probably going to be the version that lasts forever and ever. Or at least until, I don't know, YouTube does something else really fucking stupid.
Boo and hiss.
I mean, it's distressing to think about this, but because YouTube is owned by Google and Google recently removed their "Don't Be Evil" motto.
Did they really? Oh.
But the degree to which YouTube has actually, believe it or not, been important to modern lost media preservation and, how do I put this? Preservation and distribution. I don't know if I can overstate this. Garth Marenghi, which is one of my favorite shows of all time, was for a very long time only available in the US on YouTube.
We wouldn't have been able to watch Grim Prairie Tales without YouTube.
Yeah.
Precisely. The Lone Gunman, the spin-off of one of the biggest shows of the 90s. Unless you have the DVD set that was issued once in 2002 and never again, if you want to watch it, you got to go to YouTube.
Yeah, which is insane. That's just crazy.
It's a little crazy, and I feel I don't know, this movie existing, this movie being found and digitized and preserved is extremely heartening to me, because I feel we're headed for another major archival collapse in terms of media.
Leave archive.org the fuck alone. Please.
That's a big one. One of the major streamers is gonna go down, is gonna collapse inside the next 2 or 3 years. Smart Money's on HBO Max, because Warner Brothers doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. And all the shit that is on there that has never been moved into physical media is going to disappear and probably fall into a weird legal dead zone, like a lot of video games from the mid-2000s have.
Jeez. That's just depressing.
It is.
It's one of those things where it's what the fuck are you supposed to do about that, you know?
And I can tell people hey, if you want to have access to Harley Quinn 10 years from now, go pirate it now. And people don't listen to me, but that's all I can do. I can tell people, preserve what you can. Shit's getting lost. Shit is all, and Warner Brothers is our big demon right now because of Coyote versus Acme and Batgirl and Infinity Train and 5 others.
All of the all of the media conglomerates are of course complicit in this, but Warner Brothers is just being extra evil about it for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking Zaslav.
Yeah, for legal reasons, I will say don't do anything illegal. Definitely don't do anything that would break the law, because that would be bad. This is not admissible evidence in court.
It is not. I'm not pirating anything officially. I am simply saying that if you want to make sure you want to have access to Harley Quinn when HBO or the Penguin or whatever else, I'm sure the Penguin's going to get a Blu-ray release, but like after HBO Max goes down in 2 or 3 years, that's what you got to do. Use that information as thou wilt.
Ellie, you're kind of our Criterion expert. Can you picture this getting a Criterion release? Because it's been... Daughter of Dawn is part of now the National Film Registry at the Library of Congress.
Ooh.
Like, could you picture it with a Criterion release?
I'm going to be a total pain in the ass and do a Simpsons reference. Short answer, no with an if. Long answer, yes with a but. I don't think I could see this one getting an individual release, but if they did like a box set of like native films before blah, 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 absolutely 100% I can see it being in a Criterion box set.
Ooh, interesting.
You know,
no Criterions did box sets.
I have a handful of aside from, I have like the Godzilla box set, I have the Before trilogy, I have Chantal Ackerman in the 70s. Someday I'll trick all of you into watching Ancestral on one of these podcasts.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, the Criterion collection is a weird fucking collection, all things considered.
Mm.
It's a weird collection, and like I do think people there are people who will get too into it, as there are with everyone, but like they are very important for film preservation and restoration. They're very good at it. And I like a lot of the movies they pick, and they usually give really good set of special features. I'm really excited for the No Country for Old Men release next month.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be really interested in seeing like a documentary about how this film was found and preserved and what went into it, and like,
right?
Did they go back to the Comanche Nation and the Kiowa Nation and be like, hey, can you tell us more about these different things that are shown in the film?
That would be so cool. But we don't live in a good timeline, though, so I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Quick, think of something happy. Think of the bison going blep.
Yes.
I mean, we mentioned Scorsese a minute ago. And another thing that makes him really good that people don't really know about him unless you're into film is he is a tireless proponent of independent filmmakers, of weirder art house stuff, and of non-English language filmmakers. So I can also see him going like trying to he puts together box sets of like foreign or art house films. Come on, he literally just like 3 days ago was talking up I Saw the TV Glow. So he's got pretty urbane tastes. And so I can definitely see him like a box set of native films and this being included that he like curated, because I do think there's a good chance he's seen it. He loves older movies. The final shot of Goodfellas is a direct reference to like a movie from like 1906 or something.
Holy shit.
I forgot they were even making movies in 1906.
Let me look. I probably overstated the age. Let me look up the actual.
Damn, it's funny you mentioned that, because I have recently made it a goal to try to make sure I watch one film for every year that there was a film to watch. Because, on Letterboxd, it goes as far back as the 1870s with like the very first.
Oh my god.
So hell yes, I'm gonna do it.
I did state the age of the film wrong. It's not from 1906. It's from 1903.
Oh wow!
It's the great train robbery. If you haven't seen it, it's only 12 minutes long. The final shot where Joe Pesci is shooting directly at the camera is like a 1-to-1 reference to the final shot of that. Hot take: Goodfellas is a good movie, despite the fact that your the most annoying guy likes it. Let's talk about that Blep and Buffalo. I love that Blep and Buffalo.
I loved all of it was nice to see all that bison, because keep in mind, around that time they were even more in danger than they are now. So
good God. I mean, I have to imagine any vegan who watches this, like the really annoying PETA level vegans would be like,
Oh, yeah.
how dare you watch this movie? It shows animal cruelty to bisons. Like, that's not okay. To which I say, bitch, fuck off.
Mm-hmm. You are giving all the cool vegans a bad name.
I mean, like, if you want a good thing to sort of like think about as we're approaching the end of the episode, we all, of course, I feel like it is known broadly among people who are willing to have this kind of information in their heads that like the U.S. upon forming and moving out west basically wiped out the buffalo for spite.
Yep.
Yep.
That is not the happy thought. That is a deeply unpleasant thought.
That is
But
so unhappy. But
The natives who were hunting buffalo and bison, they did it sustainably. They did it thoroughly. You can make it into a meme all you want, but using every part of the animal is practical. Also,
Yep.
that vegan leather you're so in love with, it's fucking plastic. Actual leather lasts way fucking longer.
I mean, like, as someone who lived for a year in Utqiagvik, which is a place where they hunt seals to survive, you can send pleather up there all you want. You can send vegan leather up there all you want. It's not going to work in 40 degrees below zero. It's seal fur or die. But anyway, the good news I was talking about is like one of the things my dad has been talking up for a while, and which is working, is the wood bison were extinct in Alaska, and over the last 20 years they've been reintroducing a herd from Canada into Alaska. So we might have fucked it up pretty hard, but we are, at least as of right now, unfucking it at least a little bit. Trying to. And that's all you can do really, is try to unfuck it.
Slightly happy. How long do you think they were filming those bison to get the one that went zep?
You send me out there to film bison in 1919. I'm going to be sitting there watching those bison 20 minutes after my film was run out.
They are really freaking cute, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
I love a bison.
Everybody likes bison.
Protect the bison.
Please.
Yeah.
Protect the bison. Protect the media. And obviously, like,
protect the natives.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a way to say
support the natives.
Support the natives. Thank you. Yeah,
like, we don't need to protect them. That's also kind of patronizing, but
yeah,
I know. But we had a 3.
Yeah. So you know what? Protect the bison. Preserve the media. And support the natives. There we go.
There we go.
We got it. We got there eventually.
I mean, like, it's painful to think of nowadays, but like at that point in history, at 1920, protect was probably the word.
Probably, yeah. Although I could be wrong. I think in 1920 we actually had a native vice president.
Wait,
really?
What?
Let me double check. Okay, 1929. My bad. Charles Curtis was Herbert Hoover's vice president, and he was a descendant on his mother's side from the Kaw and Osage nations.
Oh.
And we will try not to hold that administration against either of those nations.
Yes.
Here's your hot take for the episode. Herbert Hoover, not a good president.
We'd like to thank you, Herbert Hoover. Theater kid!
I'm honestly surprised it took us this long to get there.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much more to say.
Well, Jazz, given that the movie is in the public domain, and you are the host of In Each Retelling, I will ask you, why does this story endure?
Fair enough. I mean, it almost didn't endure is the sad thing. But fortunately, there were a lot of really cool people who saw the value in media preservation in general, and especially preservation of representation quite like this, where not only, again, all native cast, but again, it is just a story about, it's a slice of life for them. No white nonsense involved here, thank God. And I want to see it endure even further.
This could make a musical. I'm gonna say it.
I would like that, actually. Get the right creators involved. Let's go.
You can't ask it how it relates to my podcast. This movie predates the Oscars by like 10 years.
Crazy.
Well, worth a try, but you know what? That brings us to the end of my podcast, which means it's time to ask, is the Force with it?
Yes, it's definitely with it. Very pretty movie. You will actually get invested in the love story, which isn't always easy, especially with these older films.
Mm-hmm. I agree. The Force is with it, and I'm sure Sam is happy to have an instance where I'm not being a pain in the ass about rating it.
Aww.
I am very happy, and I'm happy to say that I agree. Force is with it. This is a really cool experience, and worth watching on multiple levels. So get thee to YouTube or to archive.org, because it's there too. And yeah, that is awesome.
Also save archive.org for fuck's
Save
sake.
archive.org,
Please.
my god.
Fuck's sake.
Libraries are good. Sharing knowledge is good.
Media preservation is good.
Also, kind of a running thing about the narrative of how this film came back from the brink of being lost.
Lots of lost films were preserved because someone had it in a not strictly speaking legal way.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure.
To bring it back to the subject of this podcast, you know, y'all know that like every single time you're watching the Star Wars Holiday Special, George Lucas is mad at you. It is not authorized.
Oh well.
There has never been an authorized. They might have changed since I last looked. But
I don't do it for you, George. I do it for the sake of Carrie Fisher owning the only copy of it and whipping out to play at parties to make people leave.
I don't want to disappoint Carrie Fisher's ghost, do you?
Absolutely not. So who has Pluggables?
Well, as previously mentioned, I am the host of In Each Retelling, the podcast where we explore all the ways old tales are made new. And by the time this is out, we'll be well into Oz month. And then it's going to be holiday season time. We got some fun ways to wrap up this crazy fucking year. And our first full year of the podcast, actually.
Huzzah!
Huzzah.
So that's one good thing. Yay! And also, please stay strong. Do whatever you can to help your community, and stay here. Stay with us. We're gonna make it through this somehow.
As mentioned, I am the host of another sister podcast to this one, the Big Snide in Podcasting, where we talk about Oscar-winning films. Both Jazz and Sam are appearing on episodes in December. I'm also on Tumblr at Football in Tuxedos, and on Letterboxd, Bluesky, and Twitter, although only for a little bit longer on Twitter. At LSR42. My Twitter is winding down. I'm pretty much permanently moving to Bluesky. And yeah, I agree with Jazz. You don't have to survive for positive reasons. You can survive out of spite. You just have to survive.
Because frankly, those fuckers want you to roll over and die. Don't give them that.
Yep, you can get knocked down on Friday, just get back up on Monday, spit the blood out of your mouth, and get back to fighting.
And in the spirit of Star Wars, to be there for people who need us, this episode's Mutual Fund Spotlight goes to Empower Red Media, an initiative to create more Indigenous spaces for Indigenous writing, including books, podcasts, and films. The GoFundMe link can be found in the description for this podcast, as well as on my various socials under my new handle, Demisem. Our theme music is provided by Refractory Period, the two girls, one beat synth pop sensation. You can follow them on Instagram at Refractory Period, the band. To further support this podcast, please subscribe to us on your platform of choice, leave reviews, and share with your friends to boost our visibility, and consider joining our Patreon. And now we are not going to go to the Chance Cube, because I have established a specific little tradition. We always do a Star Wars on May the 4th, but because other Star Wars movies got released in December, it's time to break the seal. We're going back to the prequels, motherfucker, and it couldn't be more timely. Next episode is The Phantom fucking Menace. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, stay beautiful, and may the fucking Force be with you.